Welcome to the Retirement DNA Podcast. I'm Aaron Johnson. We believe you deserve financial advice based on your best interest. In our podcast, we discuss all aspects of retirement planning. And today we want to talk about the 3 different levels of advisors. We've found that a lot of people don't know what each level of advisor does or what they specialize in. And most people have heard of the level 1 advisor, but they're not sure what the difference is between level 2 and 3, right? They may not know that difference very well. And I'm going to share a conversation that we recently had with a couple that had been working with a level 2 advisor, but didn't really understand the difference or why they needed to be working with a level 3 advisor. So what are the different levels? Well, level 1. This is what we call a product provider. These are basically the Vanguards, the Fidelities, the TD Ameritrades, the Charles Schwabs out there. This is where they'll put together an asset allocation for you based on your risk tolerance and a growth goal in mind. And they give you typically one of their portfolios that uses their mutual funds or their ETFs. They do have advisors that you can use. A lot of them are typically fairly new to the industry and they're gaining experience. But their advice usually comes, fairly cheap. Level 2 are investment advisors. They're usually with big firms, banks, credit unions. They can typically be found on just about every corner of a big city, right? You all know their names. These advisors do help with a higher level of investing, or they should be. They put together investment plans. They typically do a better job of helping someone grow their money and accumulate money for retirement or education or some type of goal. However, when you're getting close to retirement, it is typically time to move to a level 3 advisor. And this is someone that is a retirement income advisor or a holistic advisor. Because as we say, in retirement, you need a retirement plan, not an investment plan. A retirement plan is not just an investment plan. To illustrate the difference between an investment advisor and a retirement advisor or a holistic advisor, I'll take you through a conversation that we recently had. So we're going to call this couple Mike and Mary. Mike and Mary had come to one of our seminars. They had also been listening to some of our podcasts, and they decided to give us a phone call and come in for a first meeting and to really get a second opinion to see if we would suggest anything different than what they were currently doing with their investment advisor. So Mike and Mary came in. We started to have a conversation with them, found out that their advisor had done a good job for them. They'd accumulated $1.5 million in 401k and IRA assets. I think they had about 100,000 of that was in a non-qualified or non-IRA account. And they said they had figured out that they were going to need $45,000 from their retirement accounts to make it in retirement. And that, on the surface doesn't seem like a big deal. That's only 3% of their overall portfolio. The problem was, as we pointed out, their portfolio was only generating $20,000 in dividends in income, not $45,000 like they needed. So here's a couple of things we looked at. We said, all right, so let's assume that you're going to get your portfolio grows at a 5% rate, right? We don't ever want to get too crazy here because you're in retirement. We want to keep things conservative, right? I mean, it is your retirement. We don't want to say, hey, we're going to assume a 10% growth because that's just not going to happen. And this is kind of an irrevocable decision. Not really, but typically once you get into retirement, you don't want to have to go back to work. If you want the option, that should be up to you, but you don't want to have to go back to work. So let's be conservative. We're going to assume things grow at 5% a year. and kind of given their Social Security and a small pension and all the other stuff that they're doing, how long is their money going to last? And according to the financial planning software we used, and we're assuming that tax rates don't change, which we know they will, but assuming they didn't, all that other stuff, it looks like their money should last until they're about 98 years old. So asked them how they felt about that, and they thought that sounded pretty good. The odds are that one of them is at least going to live until 95. And, that meant that their money would last another 35 years roughly. So on the surface, what their advisor said looks good. But then we asked them, well, what if the market doesn't return 5% all the time? What if for the next 3 or 4 years, the market is negative? Or what if it's just flat over the next few years, right? What if we had a 10-year period where the market was flat, right? We just recently had that. Now what happens to their retirement? And so we run those numbers, and now their money runs out at age 84, right? Well, that doesn't sound too good. So they asked why their advisor hadn't run that type of scenario. So we got back and we looked at a few different scenarios. So what if the husband dies a little earlier than anticipated? What if one of them needs long-term care, whether it's in the home or at a nursing home? Are you going to be okay? And in both of those situations, the surviving spouse, the wife in our example, the money's running out at age 84. What if she lives until 95? So we're seeing now that their investment plan, but you don't have a risk management plan. You don't have a plan to protect yourself against the market risk or healthcare risk. And that's a problem. If you want to retire and you have to address that stuff first, right? You have to know what those situations look like before you go into retirement. So now they're asking us, Dwayne, Aaron, why didn't our advisor talk about this? And we had to just say, well, it's not really their job. Their job is to have an investment plan and to keep you on that investment plan. So it really goes back to that level 3 advisor. They need to be talking to someone who's a holistic planner that's going to be looking at these different areas. So we want to then talk about taxes. You've done a good job of saving and you have $1.5 million and it's all in 401k or IRAs. How are you going to keep your taxes to a minimum in retirement? And taxes is one of my favorite topics. And how can we try to not give, near as much as we are scheduled to the IRS? So they looked at us and they said, well, what do you mean? And we said, well, let's click on this tax tab in the retirement planning software. And we did, and we added up every single year, assuming they go to age 95 or 98 like their money is, and they were scheduled to give the IRS just over $1 million in taxable taxes. And we said, well, how do you feel about that? Well, they really didn't like it, right? They weren't happy. And so we asked if they sit down with their tax person each year and look at tax strategies to knock that number down for the future. They said no, because they do TurboTax every year because their situation isn't very difficult. It's not complex. I said, okay, well, do you sit down with your investment advisor every year and look at these, look at different strategies to chip away at your tax bill? And they said, well, no, he said that's not really his job. So we said, okay, well, let's just play with this, quickly. We could do, some rough Roth conversions, and we just threw in some numbers, did a Roth conversion, and we were quickly able to get their tax bill, under $600,000. That's a savings of $400,000 in future taxation by just doing some quick Roth conversions. That wasn't even us going in and trying to optimize those Roth conversions. So do you already see the value of doing some tax planning every year? I mean, if you aren't do this over the next few years and look at retirement planning, you can reduce those taxes by $400,000. And we just asked if, Mike, Mary, do you think that you could do something with that $400,000 and spend it more wisely than the people in DC? And absolutely they can. And where does that money go, right? It goes back in your pocket. It goes back into your accounts. That's money that you guys can spend, or it can be passed on to beneficiaries. So obviously having some sort of tax strategy and tax plan should be part of retirement planning. Does that make sense? Yes, it absolutely does. Also, by the way, when that $400,000 in taxes is back in their account and not going to tax, now it moved them from age 84 of running out of money to well past 100. So let's talk about that next point, income planning, right? So this is a major area when we talk about retirement planning. The whole goal of retirement is to replace your paycheck when you stop working. So we need to have an income plan. So they had their portfolio was generating right around $20,000 when we looked at it, but they needed $45,000. So we asked them, so where is the other $25,000 going to come from? And they said, well, our current advisor said that he'll just sell some positions to make up the other $25,000. Well, that's all well and good as long as the market's going up, right? But you don't want to have to sell positions when the market's down or even flat. Because if the market is down and you have to sell positions, not only are your portfolio losing money, but now you're taking your $45,000 out of it, but you're also losing money when those shares are down. If the market is flat and you have to take out another $25,000 and you're selling positions, well, now your portfolio is not going to produce as much because you're selling some of those positions that are creating the $20,000. And I can tell you, we have seen more people go broke using this strategy than anything else. So let's look at how Dwayne and I put together an income plan for people, and specifically them. So with almost every client that we use kind of a bucket approach, where we have kind of our emergency money, our income money, and then our growth money. And we should probably do this in another podcast or even a YouTube video on our YouTube channel. So whenever we do income planning, we like to keep it simple, right? There's no reason to overcomplicate things. There's no reason to complicate it in retirement. And if we can keep it simple and straightforward, we're going to do so. So usually we come back to them and we say, okay, here's 3 different approaches. This is what we think works best. So this is the approach that Mike and Mary liked and they wanted to go with. So we come back and we say, okay, we need $45,000, right? Well, what if we take $500 or a third of that money and let's put it into something that is safe, that's protected from market downturns, but can still grow safely, right? And every single year, we're going to take that $45,000 out of there. Well, and we're going to spend that money, that $45,000, until it hits zero. Now, that money is going to last us between 12 and 15 years, right? But the growth money, the other $1 million, we're going to put in a growth account. We're going to invest it intelligently. We're going to invest it in an asymmetrical way so that there is protection against market declines. But when that money is growing and that first $500,000 is gone, we can use the money from that $1 million and replace the $500,000 in the next 12 to 15 years. Now, we always get the question, and the question comes up, what are we going to use with that first $500,000? What's in that income bucket? what financial tools are we going to use there? And it always comes up, right? And I'm going to tell you that pretty much every single time, and I'm going to use a word that a lot of people listening may not like, and you're going to go, oh, I don't like that word. But we typically use indexed annuities. And we almost use indexed annuities almost exclusively. Yes, we can use other options, but I can tell you they're not as good. And a lot of people go, well, I don't like annuities. And I just cringe every time I hear that word. Well, why is that? Have you heard something bad about an indexed annuity? And typically we get responses like, oh, they're expensive, or I saw an ad on Facebook that I should be worried and concerned about annuities, or I should be scared of them, right? Et cetera, et cetera. I can tell you we have been absolutely focused strictly on retirement planning for the last 20 years, 21 years now. We are fiduciaries, meaning we only care about what's best for the client, what's going to get the client to their goal, and what's going to produce the income that they need to live a comfortable retirement without worrying. And I can tell you that if you're not using annuities as for the income piece, then you're missing out, and you probably do not have an optimized portfolio. In fact, there are a lot of white papers that have been done, and a lot of economists out there now that say that you will be in a better position in almost every single case if you use an annuity than if you don't. And the research is supporting those positions now, especially with all the market volatility out there. But the problem is the word annuity can mean about 14 different things depending on how people are using the term and what they're looking for. So being educated on the different types of annuities and their different uses is a good thing, right? So, yeah, on the surface, Mike and Mary, it looks like your investment advisor is doing a good job, and it looks like you're good. But there's a lot of things that could mess that up. You have an investment plan, but you don't have an income plan. You don't have a tax strategy plan for minimizing the taxes that you pay. You don't have a risk management plan for minimizing the risk in your portfolio. And we're able to show them how we can cover those bases. Now, they ended up working with us. They looked at us and they kind of said, Dwayne, Aaron, your overall fee structure is the same as their current advisor. Why wouldn't we work with you? Right? We do a whole lot more than just their current investment advisor in putting together an investment plan. And they got to that stage of life where most people are that we work with, that they need to move from an investment plan to a holistic financial income plan. And when, they were like, why doesn't our advisor do that? And it's because that's not what they specialize in, right? This is what we specialize in: retirement planning, holistic planning. And because we specialize in that area, we should be pretty good at it, right? And we should be cost effective at doing it, right? So it is a free process. Whether they worked with us or not, they would have gotten some benefit and taken something away from it. And you can do the same thing. If you're retired or nearing retirement, why not double check what you're doing? It's free to do it. Our process is free. There's no cost and there's no obligation to come in and have a talk with us. Our main goal at the Dwayne Johnson Group and Bridger Financial Services is to make sure that our clients know that they can make it to and through retirement and can spend with confidence during those years, right? We want to make sure that they have financial security in any economy. So thank you for listening to the Retirement DNA podcast today. If you have any questions or would like to sit down with us for an initial consultation or to see if you're on track to meet your secure retirement, give us a phone call at 951-244-6702. Again, that phone number is 951-244-6702. If you like what you've heard today, please subscribe to the podcast. Pass it on to friends and family if you think that they would benefit from the information. You can also check us out at DwayneJohnsonGroup.com and BridgerFinancialServices.com. Thank you, and have a great day.
Investment advisory services offered through Bridger Financial Services, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of California. Insurance products and services are offered through Dwayne Johnson Group, LLC, affiliated company. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Dwayne Johnson Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Dwayne Johnson Group, LLC.